let's waste no time. Let's talk about the season opener on September the 4th. The last time Oklahoma opened up their season against a school from Utah, it was last season in Arlington, Texas against Brigham Young. And we know what happened. BYU won the game, and it would be the first of 5 losses for Oklahoma. However, that's not expected to happen this season against a different Utah school in the form of the Utah State Aggies. They're simply not a very good team. They haven't had a winning season in forever. They went 4-8 last year. Now, they do have a decent quarterback in DeAndre Burrell. However, he will probably get sacked quite a bit. The offensive line for the Aggies is not very good, and that's putting it mildly. Utah State did have a little momentum last season to close out because of their running back, Robert Turbin, who gained over 1,000 yards. However, he blew his knee out, ACL injury during the offseason, not expected to play, be a factor at all for September the 4th. Probably won't be recovered by then. And on defense for Utah State, their linebacking core is pretty good, but their defensive line stinks. They can't get to the quarterback at all. And this should be a game where Oklahoma not only wins comfortably, but it should be a game where you see the starters play limitedly in the second half. The reserves should get a lot of playing time in the 3rd and 4th quarter. That'll be important down the road. Oklahoma, percentage chance of winning this game, I would go 98%. Only an Oklahoma Sooner flu bug and Utah State playing the game of their life will make this game dramatic in the end. Anything short of that, Oklahoma will win in a laugher. The Florida State Seminoles, and the last time these two teams played, it was back in 2001 for the 2000 National Championship. Florida State was the favorites that night, but it was Oklahoma who came away with the victory and thus Bob Stoops' first and only national championship. We fast forward to 2010, and Florida State trying to rekindle those days of yesteryear. They haven't won the ACC title in 2005. However, this looks like one of their best offenses in quite a while. Biggest reason is because they have 5 linemen returning, including Rodney Hudson, an All-American player. Christian Ponder played pretty good last year, did have some injury, but while he was there, threw for a bunch of yardage, also threw for over 20 touchdown passes. He's back as well. He's a senior, and Burt Reed is probably his favorite target at the wideout. Biggest reason why Florida State may not be in the top 10 this season, their defense. Last year it was bad, and I mean really bad. The Seminoles D gave up over 30 points a game, and they were 110th in the country out of 120 teams in total defense. Big reason why Mark Stoops is now their defensive coordinator, and yes, Mark is the brother of Bob Stoops. Despite the coaching change from Bobby Bowden to now Jimbo Fisher, Florida State's big improvement probably won't be expected anytime soon. It takes time to change, and you get Oklahoma the second game of the year on the road. Home field advantage alone will give Oklahoma the edge in this one, plus Landry Jones should have a big day against Florida State's secondary, especially at the corners, which the Seminoles are at their weakest. It won't be easy. It'll probably be a shootout, but I'd say percentage chance of Oklahoma winning this game are at 63%. Should be an entertaining early September showdown, but Oklahoma in the end should prevail by about 10 points. September the 18th, the Air Force Falcons come to Gaylord Memorial. Last season, Air Force finished 4th in the Mountain West, which was pretty competitive. They finished behind Utah, BYU, and TCU, who finished the regular season unbeaten. Air Force last year with an 8-5 record, and they won big in the Armed Forces Bowl over Houston. That Houston team beat both Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, and of course we know what Texas Tech did to Oklahoma. This year though, Air Force, as far as the interiors, this is a scary area. Not scary good, but just plain scary. That is if you're an Air Force Falcon fan. They have to replace the entire offensive front, and 4 of their 7 on the defensive side, the front 7, 4 of those players are graduated as well. So even though as far as skill players, with Jerry 2 returning at running back, a very good running back for the Falcons by the way, it's going to be difficult for him to have a lot of success, especially against Oklahoma with an inexperienced offensive line. Don't be surprised if this is one of those games for Oklahoma if they rely on the run a little bit more than the passing game. As far as the matchup goes, Air Force has a pretty good secondary, but once again, the front seven, for the most part, will be fairly new for Air Force. I would expect DeMarco Murray, Calhoun, and those running backs to have a pretty good day against Air Force. Percentage chance that the Sooners win this game, I would go 80%. I don't think Air Force will be as good this year as last year. In fact, I think Air Force will struggle a little bit just to get to bowl eligibility, probably a 6-7 type win season. Oklahoma, in their final non-conference home game of the season, should win, and should win by a comfortable margin. And then it's on to Cincinnati. Oklahoma's first road game of the season, September 25th. It will be at Paul Brown Stadium where the Cincinnati Bengals play. However, it will be home to the Cincinnati Bearcats on that Saturday. Cincinnati, as you might know, has been pretty productive in football the past couple of seasons. They've gone to back-to-back BCS games, including an undefeated regular season just this past year. However, there's no Brian Kelly on the sideline head coaching this team. He's at Notre Dame. There's no Marty Gilliard, the explosive wide receiver slash kick returner, as well as no Tony Pike, the quarterback, the veteran quarterback. However, Cincinnati may not be as worried in this area as you might think. Zach Corrales did an admirable job coming in to replace Pike when Pike was hurt, especially the South Florida game in which Corrales broke free with a run of 75 yards for a touchdown. Corrales will be the starter, of course, this season for the Bearcats. Even though this game is in Cincinnati, and even though Oklahoma has had their struggles away from the state of Oklahoma, Oklahoma should be able to get out of Cincinnati with the win with the Texas game just a week away. I think the biggest reason why is because Cincinnati's defense was very vulnerable last season, especially the last 3 or 4 games where they were given a pinball-like yardage, especially through the air. And even though Florida was favored to beat Cincinnati, Florida absolutely walloped the Bearcats, and I think people expected a better effort from Cincinnati than that. It's a very weak secondary, and just like Oklahoma relied on the running game, or I think will rely on the running game against Air Force the week before, I think Oklahoma will heavily rely on the passing game against Cincinnati in this showdown. I would give a 65% chance that Oklahoma wins this game. It's not the same Cincinnati team that we've seen in recent years. It's not a guaranteed win for Oklahoma because of the way they've played on the road in the last 5 years, about a 500 ball club away from Norman. But Oklahoma should have a lot of momentum with a 3-0 record entering Cincinnati, and they should get out with the W. And of course, the big game coming up in Dallas against Texas, the Red River Shootout. The first Saturday in October, it's going to be a lot of fun. In fact, don't be surprised if the point spread in this game is 1 or 2 points or even a pick'em. It's going to be that difficult to figure out who's going to win this game. Texas on defense returns 7 starters. However, they lost 2 first-round draft picks from that defense in last year's NFL draft. We're talking about Sergio Kendall, defensive end, and Earl Thomas from his defensive back spot. It will still be a tough defense, however, for the Oklahoma Sooners to move the ball against, especially on the ground. As much as we like to highlight the quarterback showdown in this one, Landry Jones of Oklahoma, who will have the experience edge over Garrett Gilbert of Texas, replacing the longtime veteran Colt McCoy, it's going to be the running game that decides this one. Last year, even though Texas did not run the ball well, Oklahoma was simply a lot worse. Negative rushing yardage against Texas last year. If that happens again, I don't care how Landry Jones plays, Oklahoma will lose this game. So they must be able to run. They don't have to run for 200 yards, but they at least need to run well enough to give Landry Jones a chance in this one. Last year he had no chance. He threw 2 fourth-quarter interceptions, and Oklahoma lost the game by just 3. So you can tell just how important not having a running game was for Oklahoma. Simply put, it's going to be a close point spread. It's going to be a low-scoring game. 50-50. It's a 50% chance Oklahoma wins this game. It's just going to simply come down to which team can outrush the other, and of course, it's going to sound about as elementary, dear Watson, as it gets. Simply going to come down to which team makes the fewer mistakes. It's unlikely this year that Iowa State is going to return to a bowl game. Biggest reasons why they have to replace a good part of that defense. The defense last year was heavily relied upon, especially in the upset win at Nebraska, in which the Cyclones forced 8 turnovers. Again, most of those players from the Iowa State defense have graduated. Another reason, the schedule is brutal, especially in October, in which there'll be a full week stretch in the month of October in which they play Texas Tech as well as Utah, and of course the Sooners on that 3rd Saturday in October, and then the following week at Texas. Ouch. Iowa State, a team that last year was one of the worst in the country in time of possession, only 28 minutes per game that they had the ball, and a lot of their scores came on short drives. As long as Oklahoma doesn't pull a Nebraska from last year and go turnover crazy, the Sooners should win, and should win handily. 90% chance that they come away with a victory.